The sprawling guild city sits in the shadow of massive, claw-like peaks. For those living in the slums, the Adventurers Guild isn't just a place to find work. It's the only real lifeline for the poor to escape their fate. The guild offers free training and even provides magic to those who join. At 15, Wade decided to leave his alcoholic father behind and bet everything on becoming an adventurer apprentice to finally get some decent meals. Registering is the easy part, but Wade's father makes a scene right at the entrance. He's more interested in how his son's work will pay for his next drink than the fact that Wade is risking his life. Wade looks back with a smug grin, not caring at all about how much of a scene the old man makes. From now on, they are living in two completely different worlds. He will never be able to interfere with his life again. And the journey of a slum kid to change his fate has officially begun. Nearby, a girl named Raina is busy cornering Lilas, mocking her for being a scaredy cat. Raina claims she only joined to protect herself while traveling, but she clearly enjoys exerting power over the silver-haired girl. Wade watches the exchange from the side, but he doesn't say a word. He knows that in this world, having a rough background usually means you'll end up exactly where he is now, fighting for a chance to survive. The paperwork goes through, and Wade is officially inducted as an apprentice. He stares at his new identification tag, knowing that his path forward is anything but certain. Training starts immediately, and it's a brutal wake-up call. The apprentices are herded into a massive arena and told to run until their lungs burn and their legs give out. After hours of non-stop cardio, Wade collapses onto the damp sand, gasping for air. His body feels like it's been through a meat grinder, but the rest of the world keeps moving around him. The instructor towers over them, screaming for the apprentices to keep running. He reminds them that becoming an adventurer means risking their lives, and building up basic stamina is the only way they'll stay alive. The only thing Wade is grateful for is the food. The guild provides massive portions of meat and broth, and the instructor barks at them to eat every last bit like it's their final meal. Wade stuffs his face, not caring about the taste. He needs the fuel to transform his malnourished frame into something capable of surviving the hellish training regimen. Even Lilas looks overwhelmed by the sheer volume of food, but the training staff doesn't care. They demand the apprentices keep chewing, knowing their bodies need the mass to handle the upcoming trials. The months of grueling physical labor start to show results. Wade spends his days swinging heavy wooden swords, his once skinny body slowly filling out with hard-earned muscle. By the time the final tests approach, Wade has become a different person. He's lean, disciplined, and capable, standing alongside the other apprentices who have managed to survive the instructor's discipline. The day of the magic transmission ceremony finally arrives. The apprentices gather before the grand guild hall, the atmosphere thick with nervous anticipation for what's to come. A massive magic circle is set into the stone floor, ready to bestow each apprentice with their specific affinity. For some, this will be the moment they become heroes. For others, a crushing disappointment. Flynn is one of the first to go, and he hits the jackpot. A brilliant light erupts as he awakens fire magic, a high-tier offensive affinity that practically guarantees him a successful career. In this world, magic is everything. Getting a prestigious affinity like silver means you're destined for veteran status, while everyone else is just a pathetic apprentice egg waiting to see if they'll even be useful. While most people are sweating with nerves, Flynn notices that Wade is just sitting there with a calm face. He walks over, clearly annoyed that the top scorer isn't showing any fear before his turn. Flynn gets right in Wade's face, mocking his carefree attitude. Wade just stares back, unimpressed, which only makes the arrogant fire mage more desperate to pick a fight. The tension boils over as Flynn grabs Wade by the collar, demanding he stop acting so high and mighty. Even the other apprentices try to tell Flynn to back off, but his ego is already out of control. Flynn finds Wade's cool-headedness absolutely infuriating. He's used to being the center of attention, and Wade's silence feels like a personal insult to his new status as a fire mage. The instructor's voice booms across the hall, ordering them to form up. Flynn lets go, but he shoots Wade one last glare, convinced that his luck with fire magic makes him the superior man. The ceremony continues as the instructor calls out names from his clipboard. He directs each apprentice into the private rooms where the magic transmission will be performed. Flynn steps out, proudly displaying the magic seal on the back of his hand. He boasts that he's already reached the entrance of being a hero, practically vibrating with arrogance. He believes his high attack power and reflexes will carry him all the way to the top. To Flynn, fire magic is the ultimate lucky streak, a golden ticket that sets him apart from the rest of the trash. He even summons a small flame for the crowd, soaking in the cheers of the other apprentices. It's a popular, reliable spell that everyone in the room wishes they could have received. The guild records show that core elemental magics, fire, water, earth, and wind, are the most reliable paths for any adventurer. They offer a mix of defense, healing, and high mobility that parties desperately need. But as the instructor moves down the list, he explains that there are outliers, spells that are generally considered strange or far away from the popular elemental core. Wade steps forward, hopping for something useful, but the result is a shock. The magic that takes root in him is slow, an affinity widely regarded as the absolute worst possible result. As far as the guild knows, the only thing this magic can do is slow down the user's own movements. The crowd starts whispering immediately, mocking Wade for his terrible luck. Wade stares at his hand, his mind reeling from the revelation. He spent months training his body to its limit, only to be saddled with a spell that seems designed to hold him back. He starts to walk away, the weight of the failure sinking in, but then something snaps. A sudden rush of memories that shouldn't belong to him floods his mind, changing everything he thought he knew. Wade raises his hand again, a new understanding of physics guiding his will. He realizes slow is actually gravity, and he chants his very first spell, Wait Up. A massive force slams into Wade, cratering the floor beneath him as intense gravity manifests. The sheer pressure is enough to shock everyone in the hall as the ground cracks under the sudden weight. Wade collapses into the crater, coughing as his body struggles to process the massive increase in mass. He's managed to cast something far more powerful than anyone realized, but his consciousness is starting to drift. As his vision fades, Wade finds himself floating in a dark abyss. A strange thought about a gacha being too gory flashes through his head as the fragments of a past life finally come together. He remembers a cramped apartment in Japan, a place where he lived alone in a mess of trash and unfulfilled dreams. It was a life defined by isolation and the crushing weight of modern society. The memories of the daily grind return, the suffocating morning commute on packed trains, the endless sea of suits, and the cold reality of being just another face in the crowd. He remembers the endless hours spent hunched over a keyboard in a fluorescent-lit office. He was a corporate slave, buried under a mountain of paperwork that never seemed to end. His previous life ended right there at his desk, fueled by energy drinks and caffeine until his heart finally gave out. He died alone in that office, but now he's been given a second chance with a power no one understands. Wade's mind is a kaleidoscope of his former world, the towering skyscrapers, the neon lights, and the endless sea of commuters. It's a lot to take in, seeing the city he once called home while lying in a world of swords and sorcery. He wakes up in the apprentice barracks, staring blankly at the wooden beams of the ceiling. It's official. He's been reincarnated, and the magic seal on his hand is his new reality, though it feels more like a game mechanic than anything else. But things start to click when he thinks about the slow magic he was given. In his mind, he sees the image of Isaac Newton and the law of universal gravitation, realizing that what people here call a curse is actually the power to control gravity itself. He figures that as he grows, the magic seal on his right hand will evolve, allowing him to unlock even more complex spells. It's like leveling up in an RPG, and he's ready to start grinding his skills. Looking at the intricate seal, Wade realizes that if he uses it correctly, this could be a cheat-level ability. The world thinks he's weak, but he's already seeing the limitless potential in manipulating the fundamental forces of nature. He gets to work immediately, testing his theory with a training sword in the arena. He chants, "Wait up," and a heavy, crushing pressure descends on his body, the black spheres of gravity manifesting around his limbs. Even while eating in the common hall, Wade is deep in thought about the lack of scientific knowledge in this world. To them, weight and speed are just facts of life, not something that can be broken down into formulas and manipulated. He continues his secret training, intensifying the gravity in small bursts while sitting on the sidelines. He notes that a person who doesn't understand the concept of gravity would just think their body was getting heavy from exhaustion. As Wade was busy eating, Flynn approached with that arrogant sneer of his. He had been riding high since awakening his fire magic, and clearly had no intention of stopping his efforts to trample all over Wade's self-esteem. Flynn starts laughing, mocking Wade for receiving what he calls forbidden magic, a joke about how useless, slow magic is supposed to be. He even gives Wade a new nickname, Wait Kun, laughing at his own wit. He points at the seal on Wade's hand, purposely mispronouncing the name of the magic to make it sound even more pathetic. He's doing everything he can to make sure Wade knows exactly where he stands in the new hierarchy. "What are you gonna do? You're gonna quit being an adventurer, aren't you?" Flynn shouts, drawing the attention of everyone in the dining hall as he tries to pressure Wade into giving up. Wade stops and finally addresses him, his voice calm and steady despite the public humiliation. He's not the same desperate boy Flynn used to know, and he's not about to let a little bullying get to him. He takes another bite of his bread and looks Flynn right in the eye, telling him not to worry about such trivial things. To Wade, becoming an adventurer means living with death as a constant companion, and if Flynn can't handle a little silence, he won't last long. Flynn's face twists in anger as he realizes his insults aren't landing. He slams his hand down, frustrated that his fire magic isn't enough to intimidate the one person he truly despises. "Let's do this," Flynn growls, pointing a defiant thumb at himself. He formally challenges Wade to a mock battle, determined to use his flames to prove once and for all who the real top apprentice is. Wade accepts without hesitation, which only fuels Flynn's rage. The fire mage sneers, promising that in 2 days' time, he's going to burn Wade to a crisp in front of the entire guild. 2 days later, Wade is back in the arena, preparing for the match. He's been experimenting with his intensified magic, wondering how to best utilize the crushing weight he can now summon at will. He pushes himself through his morning run, keeping the Wait Up spell active to increase the resistance. Every step is an agonizing struggle, but he can feel his physical strength growing by leaps and bounds. He's found that he can adjust the output of the gravity by holding a clear image in his mind. By borrowing the power of the seal for strength training, he's essentially doing high-intensity workouts that no other apprentice can match. When he finally cancels the magic, his body feels incredibly light, and his speed suddenly triples. He lets out a small, determined breath, realizing he's actually starting to enjoy the tactical depth of this gravity magic. On the other side of the grounds, Flynn is already busy showing off his newly awakened fire magic to a group of awestruck apprentices. Flynn lets out a loud shout as he launches a massive fireball across the arena, the intense heat and light meant to intimidate anyone who might try to challenge him. Wade keeps his head down, focusing on his own drills and ignoring the noisy displays of power. Behind him, the instructor yells at the group not to break the expensive training equipment in their excitement. The fireball strikes a target with enough force to cause a serious explosion. The rumor among the apprentices is that a direct hit from Flynn's magic is enough to take out a low-level monster in a single shot. Nearby, Tatsuya, a tall boy with an arrogant pompadour, watches the display with a condescending smirk. He's a wind magic user, and he thinks that speed is the only thing that truly matters in a real fight. He walks past Wade and accidentally bumps into him, barely offering a fake apology as he keeps moving. He's clearly trying to bait Wade into a confrontation, just like Flynn did in the dining hall. "I use wind magic. No one can stop me with my speed," Tatsuya boasts, holding up his hand as if he's already won. He looks back at Wade with a mocking grin, expecting him to be intimidated by his superior mobility. Wade doesn't say a word, but he's already had enough of the posturing. He reaches out and activates Wait Up with a cold, focused expression, his fingers glowing with the dark energy of his seal. He grabs Tatsuya's wrist, and the black spheres of gravity instantly appear, pinning the arrogant boy's arm down. Tatsuya's eyes widen in shock as he realizes he suddenly can't move a single muscle. With a sudden surge of power, Wade slams Tatsuya into the stone floor, the impact creating a small crater. He walks away without looking back, while someone in the crowd whispers, "Zako," the ultimate insult for a weakling. Wade simply walked away, leaving the chaos he had just caused behind him. The other apprentices had no clue what had just happened, wondering if Tatsuya had simply collapsed out of thin air. The arena is packed as the time for the formal mock battle arrives. The instructor stands at the center of the pit, announcing that the apprentices will now test their magic in a series of live matches. Wade and Flynn face each other across the dusty ground, the tension between them palpable. Flynn lets out a mocking laugh, calling Wade a slowpoke magic boy and asking if he's forgotten the humiliation from 2 days ago. The crowd is already gossiping, with most people betting that Flynn will crush Wade in seconds. Flynn himself is practically vibrating with overconfidence, pointing a finger at Wade and promising to end this quickly. Wade ignores the chatter and prepares his gear, surprising everyone by strapping on a sturdy wooden shield. Flynn just scoffs, telling him to hurry up so they can get the execution over with. "Are you going to be scared and equip a shield today?" Flynn mocks, his eyes wide with an aggressive, wild energy. He thinks the shield is just a sign of cowardice, a desperate attempt by a weakling to stay in the fight. Wade just stares at him, his face a mask of calm determination as the gravity orbs begin to swirl around his hand. He admits that Flynn's fire magic is scary, but he's already prepared a counter that nobody in this arena is expecting. The two of them lock eyes in an intense stare-down, neither one willing to blink as the signal to start approaches. Flynn is baffled by Wade's lack of fear, his confusion quickly turning into a fresh wave of rage. The fight officially begins, and the two boys circle each other in the wide-open arena. The surrounding apprentices watch with bated breath, eager to see if the slow, magic user stands any chance against the fire mage. The instructor watches from the side, ready to intervene if things get out of hand. Wade keeps his shield held high, his posture perfect as he waits for Flynn to make the first move. Flynn doesn't wait long, his hands glowing as he prepares to strike, but Wade suddenly bursts into motion. His speed is far beyond what anyone expected from a slowpoke, leaving Flynn wide-eyed and scrambling to keep up. Wade bursts into motion, his speed catching Flynn completely off guard as he disappears from his line of sight. The other apprentices watch in stunned silence as the boy they mocked as a slowpoke moves with a grace and velocity they can barely track. Flynn lets out a desperate shout, launching a massive fireball at the blur that is Wade, but it's far too late. Wade has already circled behind him, his shield raised and ready as he prepares to deliver the final blow. The impact of Flynn's fire spell creates a massive explosion that rattles the stadium floor, sending a cloud of dust and debris into the air. Wade grinds his teeth as he takes the brunt of the heat behind his shield, realizing that even with his enhanced speed, he can barely block the sheer force of the flames. Flynn's face is a mask of pure rage, his teeth bared as he screams for a fair fight, unable to accept that he's being outplayed. Wade stands his ground, his eyes cold and focused as he prepares to show everyone the true power of his gravity magic. Wade activates his seal, a shimmering magic circle appearing on his palm as he prepares to shift the battle in his favor. He's been holding back, but now it's time to unleash the weight of his training on the arrogant fire mage. With a sudden burst of speed, Wade lunges forward, his body low to the ground as he closes the distance between him and Flynn. The fire mage barely has time to react as Wade's shield comes crashing down, the black spheres of gravity magic swirling around him. Flynn lets out a strangled gasp, his amber eyes wide with shock as he realizes he can't move his arms to cast another spell. The pressure on his body is immense, and for the first time, he feels the true, crushing weight of the slow magic he once ridiculed. Wade's mind is a cold calculation of gravity and force, his past life's knowledge guiding his every movement. He realizes that his magic isn't just about weight, it's about manipulating the fundamental laws of nature to his advantage. He channels the gravity magic into his wooden sword, the weapon becoming impossibly heavy as he brings it down in a powerful arc. This is the culmination of his training, the moment where he proves that a slowpoke can become the most dangerous person in the room. The arena floor shatters under the pressure of Wade's final strike, the impact sending a shockwave through the ground that knocks the surrounding apprentices back. Flynn is pinned to the floor, his flames extinguished as he looks up at Wade with a mixture of terror and disbelief. Wade stands over his fallen rival, the black spheres of gravity magic slowly dissipating as he looks down with a calm, steady gaze. The stadium is silent, the only sound the heavy breathing of the two combatants as the realization of what just happened sinks in. Flynn lets out a final, pathetic whimper as he realizes his pride has been shattered along with his defense. He's been defeated by the very person he thought was beneath him, and the humiliation is more painful than any physical injury. The instructor steps forward, his voice booming across the arena as he declares Wade the victor of the mock battle. The other apprentices are still in a state of shock, unable to process how someone with slow magic could move with such devastating speed and power. Flynn is left crumpled in the ruins of the arena, his face twisted in a mixture of rage and despair as he curses Wade under his breath. He was supposed to be the top apprentice, the one chosen for the hero's path, but now he's just a broken boy in the dust. Even though the match was over, Flynn was still fuming, his hands glowing with flickers of magic fire as he swore to settle the score. He refused to accept that Wade's victory was anything but a fluke, his arrogance blinding him to the reality of the situation. In a desperate move, Flynn lunges at Wade once more, his hand glowing with a concentrated fireball that he intends to use to end the battle for good. Wade reactivates Wade Up, his expression cold as he prepares to end this once and for all. The explosion was massive, the sheer, hellish heat of Flynn's fire magic turning the air into a shimmering haze of destruction. Wade stood his ground, gripping his shield firmly before deflecting the magic blast straight back at its owner. Flynn lets out a blood-curdling scream as his own magic backfires, the intense heat and pressure of the explosion overwhelming his defenses. He collapses to the ground, his body wreathed in smoke as the other apprentices rush forward in a panic. Wade stands alone in the center of the arena, his posture perfect as he looks down at the fallen fire mage. He's proven his point, and now he's ready to move on to the next stage of his training. Lilas watches from the sidelines, her hands clutched to her chest as she stares at Wade with a mixture of awe and concern. She's seen the true power of his magic, and she knows that their lives are about to change forever. The news of Wade's victory spreads through the guild like wildfire, the other apprentices whispering about the slowpoke, who defeated a fire mage. Some are impressed, while others are clearly intimidated by the boy with the mysterious gravity magic. Wade takes it all in with a stoic expression, his sharp eyes scanning the room as he prepares for the challenges ahead. He knows that his victory today has only made him a target, but he's more than ready to handle whatever comes his way. The next stage of their training is announced. The apprentices will be exploring the shallow floors of the local dungeon in parties of at least 2 people. It's a chance to put their skills to the test in a real-world environment, and the excitement in the room is palpable. The instructor pulls Wade aside, his voice low and serious as he warns him that dungeon exploring is a life-and-death situation. He tells Wade that even with his talent, he needs to find a partner who is just as dedicated to survival as he is. Wade tries to find a partner among the other apprentices, but he's met with a sea of cold shoulders and fearful glances. His victory over Flynn has made him an outcast, and many of the other boys are too intimidated to even look him in the eye. A group of apprentices laughs as they walk past Wade, mocking his lack of friends and his supposedly useless magic. They think they're safe as long as they stay in their own cliques, but Wade knows that the dungeon won't care about their social standing. Wade stands alone in the center of the bustling common hall, the weight of his isolation beginning to set in. He knows he can't go back to the slums, but he also knows that he can't survive the dungeon on his own. A sudden shout interrupts his thoughts, and Wade looks up to see a group of girls arguing in the corner. One of them is clearly bullying another, and Wade feels a familiar sense of irritation rising in his chest. Raina, the water mage, is pointing a finger at a shy girl with long silver-white hair, mocking her for her supposedly weak ice magic. She thinks that because her own magic is more versatile, she has the right to dictate who gets to be in her party. Wade steps in, his voice calm and steady as he tells Raina to back off. He's had enough of bullies for one day, and he's not about to let someone like Raina look down on another person just because of their magic type. Raina's face twists in anger as she realizes who's confronting her, her arrogance flaring up once more. She calls Wade a slowpoke and tells him to stay out of things he doesn't understand, but Wade isn't backing down. The silver-haired girl, Lilas, looks up at Wade with a mixture of awe and gratitude, her hands clutched to her chest. She's never seen anyone stand up to Reyna before, and the fact that it's the boy everyone's been talking about makes it even more impactful. Reyna lets out a mocking laugh, her eyes wide with a manic energy as she dismisses Lilas and Wade as a pair of losers. She's convinced that her water magic makes her superior, and she's not about to let a couple of weaklings change her mind. Wade ignores her and turns to Lilas, his voice softening as he asks her if she wants to team up. He's seen the potential in her ice magic, and he knows that together, they might just have a chance to survive the challenges ahead. Lilas's face lights up with a shy, hopeful smile as she accepts Wade's offer, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and fear. She's found a partner, and for the first time in a long time, she feels like she might actually belong. A few days later, the apprentices gather at the entrance to the first dungeon floor, their faces a mixture of determination and anxiety. The instructor stands at the front, his voice booming as he gives them their final instructions before they head into the depths. The rules are simple. The apprentices are to explore the first floor and return after defeating at least 3 monsters each. It's a test of their endurance and their ability to work together as a team, and the stakes are higher than they've ever been. Wade and Lilas stand together, their postures tense as they wait for the signal to begin. They're a pair of outcasts in a sea of arrogant apprentices, but they're determined to prove that their magic is just as powerful as anyone else's. The dungeon entrance looms before them like a gaping maw, the air inside thick with the scent of damp stone and ancient magic. The instructor warns them that the dungeon is a place of pure malice, and that they must be prepared for anything if they want to make it out alive. The apprentices are reminded that those who survive and complete the training will be given their Bronze Adventurer's Certificate, a mark of their status as fully fledged adventurers. It's a prize that many of them would kill for, and the tension in the room is at an all-time high. The instructor's face is a mask of stern determination as he bellows his final warning to the group. He tells them to never underestimate the dungeon, for it is a place where even the most talented apprentices can find themselves in over their heads. He reveals the sobering truth. Last year, 30% of the apprentices died in this very dungeon, a statistic that sends a wave of fear through the room. Wade and Lilas lock eyes, their resolve hardening as they prepare to face the darkness together. The training begins in earnest as the apprentices gather their gear and prepare to enter the dungeon. Wade and Lilas stand together, a solitary pair among the larger parties, while the other apprentices whisper and point, their skepticism clear. Reyna watches them with a mocking sneer, her arrogance undiminished by the instructor's warnings. She continues to belittle Wade's slow magic and Lilas's supposedly weak ice abilities, convinced that they are both destined for failure. Wade turns to Reyna with a cold, level stare, his patience finally wearing thin. He doesn't need to shout to make his point, his calm demeanor a sharp contrast to Reyna's loud-mouthed posturing. Reyna's face contorts in a mixture of shock and fury as Wade's blunt question catches her off guard. She's used to being the one in control, the one everyone is afraid of, and being challenged by someone she considers beneath her is more than her ego can take. Wade and Lilas begin their descent, the sounds of the guild hall fading behind them as they step into the dark, damp tunnel. Lilas is tense, her hands clutched to her chest, but Wade's steady presence beside her provides a small measure of comfort. The deeper they go, the more the atmosphere shifts, the air thick with the scent of ancient stone and something more primal. Wade remains alert, his sharp eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement as they venture further into the unknown. A massive mechanical elevator carries them further down into the depths of the earth, the grinding of the gears the only sound in the oppressive silence. Wade and Lilas stand together in the small wooden cage, the flickering light of a single lantern casting long, dancing shadows against the rocky walls. Once they reach the first floor, Wade lights a torch, the sudden flare of light illuminating a vast, winding cavern. The path ahead is treacherous and unpredictable, a maze of stone and shadow that has claimed the lives of many apprentices before them. As they move forward, Wade recalls the stories he's heard about the dungeon. a place of both great treasure and even greater danger. He knows that many adventurers have lost their lives here, their dreams of glory ending in the cold, dark depths. He imagines the legendary adventurers of the past, men who rose to power and wealth by conquering the same dangers that now loom before him. For Wade, the dungeon isn't just a training ground, it's a ladder to the life he's always wanted. The myths of the dungeon tell of monsters that grow stronger by consuming the remains of those who fall within its walls. It's a cycle of death and power that Wade is determined to break, his mind focused on survival and the rewards that come with it. Despite the grisly legends, Wade isn't here for the gold or the fame. He's here to prove himself, to show the world that his magic is anything but slow. He knows that the true treasure isn't found in a chest, but in the strength he'll gain by overcoming the dungeon's challenges. Without warning, a pack of snarling goblins bursts from the shadows, their eyes gleaming with a feral hunger. Wade reacts instantly, his expression shifting from calm to a predatory grin as he prepares to unleash his gravity magic. He activates Wait Up, the black spheres of gravity magic swirling around him as he lunges at the nearest goblin. The creature's eyes widen in terror as it's suddenly crushed by an unseen force, its movements becoming sluggish and heavy. Wade moves with a devastating efficiency, his sword a blur of motion as he carves through the goblin pack. Each strike is calculated and precise, the weight of his magic turning even a simple wooden blade into a weapon of immense power. The lead goblin lets out a final, strangled shriek as Wade's blade connects, the impact sending the creature flying back into the stone wall. The rest of the pack hesitates, their initial aggression replaced by a sudden, paralyzing fear. Wade doesn't give them a chance to recover, his body low to the ground as he continues his relentless assault. He's no longer the slowpoke they once knew. He's a force of nature, a master of gravity who will let nothing stand in his way. The battle is a whirlwind of black spheres and silver steel, the goblins falling one by one before Wade's superior technique and overwhelming power. Lilith watches in stunned silence, her own magic ready, but unneeded as Wade clears the path forward. With a final, powerful strike, Wade brings down the last of the goblins, the creature's body dissolving into dark mist as the battle finally ends. He stands over the remains, his breathing steady, his sharp eyes already scanning the tunnel for the next threat. He realizes that his confidence might have led him into a trap, a sudden movement in the shadows catching his attention just as a second wave of goblins emerges. Wade grinds his teeth, his grip tightening on his sword as he prepares for another round. Before the goblins can strike, Lilith steps forward, her hands glowing with a soft, blue light as she channels her ice magic. A sudden blast of freezing air fills the tunnel, encasing the remaining goblins in solid blocks of ice and ending the threat before it can even begin. Wade and Lilith stand together in the now silent cavern, the only sound the faint crackling of the ice as it begins to settle. They've proven that together, they're a force to be reckoned with, their combined magic far more powerful than anyone could have imagined. Back at the guild training area, Lilith looks down at her hands, her expression a mixture of doubt and sadness. She still feels like a burden, like her magic isn't enough to truly help Wade on his journey. Wade watches her with a soft expression, his own doubts about her abilities slowly beginning to fade. To prove her worth, Wade asks Lilith to demonstrate her ice magic on a nearby training dummy. With a deep breath, she extends her hand, a flurry of ice crystals forming in the air as she prepares to show him exactly what she can do. This is her chance to prove that she's more than just a half-assed mage. Lilith shatters the training dummy with a powerful ice blow, sending wooden shards flying everywhere. Wade is impressed by the power, but Lilith admits her magic is only this effective when there's plenty of water around to work with. Wade asks for a demonstration without water, and Lilith's expression immediately drops. She fires the spell again, but the ice is jagged and weak, barely scratching the surface of the targets. She looks down in shame, clearly feeling like her magic is useless without the perfect conditions. Lilith apologizes and even offers to do menial tasks like carrying luggage, just to stay in the party. Wade tells her not to worry about it, noting that his own gravity magic was once seen as nothing more than a way to do weight training. He encourages her to stay confident and suggests he try using his magic directly on the dummy. Wade touches the dummy and activates his gravity magic, causing the wood to splinter and buckle under the sudden, massive weight. Lilas is wide-eyed at the destruction, while Wade thinks about how her ice magic is actually much better than she thinks. Later in the dungeon, a monster is frozen solid, and Lilas is relieved that she could finally be of help. Wade praises her, admitting that her ice magic was what allowed them to freeze the enemy instantly. Exploring further, Wade finds a poisoned sword on the ground and notes the sheer malice of the dungeon's first floor. Lilas gives him a bright, determined smile when asked if she wants to keep going. Groups of apprentices descend deeper into the cavern, their torches lighting up the dark stone walls. Meanwhile, Reyna recalls her past treatment of Lilas, viewing the girl as a lonely outcast with a gloomy hobby. She can't stand the fact that Wade managed to defeat fire magic with what everyone calls slow magic. Reyna is certain that two amateurs like Wade and Lilas will never make it out of the dungeon alive. A horrific creature emerges from the darkness, something that definitely shouldn't be on the shallow floors. The manticore lets out a low growl, its human-like face and rows of sharp teeth looking like something out of a nightmare. Wade is busy dealing with a group of goblins in another tunnel, using his magic to pin them down. A goblin is slammed into the stone floor with a crunching sound as the gravity intensifies. Wade cancels the spell and exhales, wiping sweat from his brow after the skirmish. Lilas is amazed at how he seems to soar through the air with such ease during combat. Wade explains it's a new spell he's been experimenting with on wandering monsters. He thinks back to his training, where he figured out how to use weight down to reduce gravity's effect on himself. He was eager to see if this new trick would finally give him the mobility he needed. Activating the spell made him feel light as a feather, like he was walking on the surface of the moon. In a flashback, he takes a massive leap that carries him high above the rooftops of the guild city. He realized then that he had found a serious game-changer for his fighting style. Back in the present, he demonstrates his weightless jumps for a stunned Lilas. Lilas is speechless, realizing he's combining these weight changes to create a completely new way to move. Their conversation is cut short by a blood-curdling scream echoing through the cavern. Wade immediately pulls his sword, his expression hardening as he looks toward the source of the sound. They round the corner and find the legendary manticore standing over its victims. The beast is massive, its scorpion tail twitching as it looms over the terrified apprentices. Wade tells Lilas to get close and draw its attention so he can move in for a strike. He activates his weight reduction and leaps toward the monster, flying through the air with precision. The manticore is in the middle of a slaughter, its powerful claws swiping at anything that moves. Reyna is found huddled over a mangled apprentice, desperately trying to use her magic to heal the wound. Wade calls out to the survivors, looking for anyone who hasn't completely lost their cool. He steps in to block a strike from the beast, admitting that things have gotten way more complicated than he expected. Wade lunges at the manticore, shouting that he's not about to stop now. He dodges a massive claw swipe, mocking the beast for thinking it had won. Despite its injuries, the manticore remains a savage threat, its eyes wide with feral rage. Wade grinds his teeth, bracing himself as blood splatters the ground around him. Clay watches from the side, sweating as he realizes Wade is pushing far past a normal apprentice's limits. They're both stunned to see the beast still moving, even after taking a blow that should have reached its heart. A memory of the instructor flashes back, reminding them that a monster can still kill you even with a fatal wound. Wade tells the others to step aside as he prepares to receive the next attack head-on. The manticore roars in agony when Wade manages to land another hit, but it refuses to go down. Wade taunts the beast, telling it not to underestimate him as he readies his fist. Clay realizes the plan. He just needs to stop the beast long enough for Wade to create a definitive opening. Wade beckons the monster closer, calling it an ugly freak and daring it to come at him. The manticore lunges with a deafening roar, its massive mouth wide open as it targets the boy. Clay swings his heavy hammer with all his might, aiming to cave in the beast's skull. The hammer connects with a bone-shattering crunch right as the monster's jaws were about to close. Wade moves in with a gravity-amplified strike, his expression cold and focused. The manticore lets out a final, pained cry as the force of the blow hits home. Wade shouts "Quake" as he slams the beast into the earth with overwhelming gravity. The resulting shockwave is massive, leaving a crater in the dungeon floor and sending debris flying. Lilith follows up with her ice blow, freezing the remnants of the beast in an instant. The frozen carcass of the manticore stands motionless, completely neutralized by their combined efforts. Wade asks Clay to borrow his hammer for a moment, deciding he needs a more permanent solution. He looks down at the beast's remains, breathing heavily from the exertion. The monster is finally shattered into pieces, leaving nothing but shards of ice and stone behind. Clay is left breathless, staring at the destruction caused by someone he thought was just a slow magic user. Wade takes command, telling the group to gather the wounded and make a run for the exit. They carry the injured out of the dark tunnels, their torches barely lighting the way. Reyna walks ahead of the group, her face pale and her eyes filled with tears after the horrific ordeal. Once they reach the surface, the guild announces that all training sessions are canceled for the day. Clay notes that while a manticore attack is rare, it's not unheard of for apprentices to get wiped out by one. Wade turns back to give the group a thumbs up, telling them they both did a good job in the fight. Clay is slightly hurt to realize that after all that, Wade still doesn't even know his name. Wade casually apologizes, explaining that unless someone is famous, he usually doesn't bother remembering them. Lilith tries to smooth things over, giving a polite apology to Clay on Wade's behalf. Clay introduces himself properly, proudly stating that he's a user of clay magic. Lilith adds that her name is Lilith, though Wade finds it funny that her title is basically Ice Mage. Wade realizes that everyone in this world has names that are incredibly easy to remember based on their magic. They walk through the bustling town square, the sun finally providing some warmth after the cold dungeon. Wade reflects on the experience, realizing that if a second manticore had attacked, they would have been hopeless. He looks back at the dungeon entrance, finally understanding that the labyrinth is a place of pure malice. A warning sign confirms his suspicions. Entering a dungeon where you can easily die makes no sense if you can't even get the treasure. Wade looks at a vendor's stall, finally seeing the logic in the guild's strict rules about party sizes. Wade continues his explanation, stating that the rule against entering dungeons alone is primarily to reduce the death toll. He points out that even with more people, survival isn't a guarantee, and that's the core of the dungeon's malice. As they walk through the town, Wade looks at a shop and realizes his standard-issue leather armor is woefully inadequate. He thinks to himself that if he ever hopes to confess his feelings, he needs to upgrade to something more substantial. Wade turns to his companions and suggests that they all go equipment shopping together once they have more money. Clay is thrilled by the idea, while Wade reminds himself that he first needs to turn his recent loot into cash. Clay can't stop praising Wade, calling him a hero for his fearless attitude against the manticore even when unarmed. Lilith agrees, still in awe that Wade was able to create an opening against such a beast with a single punch. Wade is a bit embarrassed by the praise, while Lilith looks at him with a soft, appreciative smile. He tries to share the credit, noting that Clay gave him the opening and Lilith was the one who delivered the final blow. Clay beams with pride at being acknowledged by Wade, while Lilith remains bashfully silent. As they descend a set of stairs, Wade's sharp eyes catch a glimpse of someone he wasn't expecting to see. Reyna appears from the shadows, mocking the group and calling Wade's previous words strange. Wade's expression hardens as he wonders what the arrogant water mage wants with them now. Wade didn't hold back at all and immediately snapped back at Reyna, calling her useless and telling her that he had seen exactly what she was made of the moment they were fighting the monster. Struck by his words hitting the nail on the head, Reyna stood frozen, head bowed as Wade's remarks began to crush her self-confidence. As tears began to fall, Reyna finally managed to choke out an apology, admitting that she simply didn't know how to approach the group. She thanked Wade and Lilith for saving her back in the dungeon. Wade tried to apologize for being too harsh earlier, but his attempt at empathy only hit a nerve, causing Raina to break down in even louder, uncontrollable sobs. Wade reflects on how most people their age would be panicking after facing death, yet the group seems relatively calm. He looks at his own hand, realizing that they've all developed a certain tolerance for the malice of this world. Wade told Raina that learning to keep her mouth shut and stop poking her nose into others' business is the real secret to a long and healthy life. Wade asks the girls if they're uninjured, and Clay gives a thumbs up while Raina remains silent and shaken. Exhausted from the day's events, Wade tells the others he's heading home for a nap as they disband. He walks away into the town, leaving the girls behind without realizing the psychological battle about to take place. The moment Wade was out of sight, Raina's demeanor shifted from fragile to pure malice as she loomed over Lilas. Raina mocks the idea of Wade having a crush on Lilas, calling the notion completely ridiculous. Lilas trembles as Raina questions her, her voice barely a whisper as she tries to handle the intense pressure. Raina corners Lilas against a brick wall, her shadow swallowing the smaller girl whole. Raina's hand shoots out as she tells Lilas that ice cream shouldn't get any big ideas about Wade. She reminds Lilas that she was always a good girl who followed every command Raina gave her in the past. Raina suddenly puts on a fake, bright smile, claiming that she likes Wade too and asking if Lilas has a problem with that. Lilas can only stare in horror at the toxic display of affection from the girl who was just bullying her. Raina's grip tightens as she slams Lilas into the stone wall, the sound of the impact echoing through the narrow street. Lilas gasps in pain and fear, her hands trembling as she realizes there's no escape from Raina's malice. Raina sneers, telling Lilas that Wade would never even look at someone as stinky and half-baked as her. With a sharp slap, she accused Lilas of being a manipulative woman for trying to meddle in other people's love lives. Raina pins Lilas against the wall with one hand, her eyes flashing with a terrifying, crazy intensity. She laughs at the fact that Wade isn't here to save her, and that crying won't do Lilas any good now. Lilas collapses to the ground in a heap, sobbing as Raina offers a deal to let her off easy this time. Raina grabs Lilas by the chin, forcing the crying girl to meet her cold gaze as she lays out her demands. Raina declares that from now on, Lilas belongs to her and will act as support for her own love life. The close-up reveals Raina's eyes wide with a manic gleam, while Lilas's eyes are filled with tears of pure despair. A flashback reveals the source of Lilas's deep-seated trauma, as a young Raina and her friends mock Lilas's gloomy hobbies and burn her handmade crafts in a fire. The group continues to alienate Lilas, laughing as they leave her behind and telling her that no one would ever choose to play with her if it weren't for their pity. Lilas stands small and isolated as the mocking whispers of "drop" surround her, the childhood name of the girl who made her life a misery. Tears stream down young Lilas's face as she clutches her dress, her only wish being to find a place where her bully can never find her again. The memory shifts to Lilas preparing to leave her village, with concerned neighbors warning her that the Guild City is full of dangerous people from the slums. Lilas's father tearfully sees her off, urging her to take care of her health and rest as she sets out to become an adventurer and escape her past.